Hi, I'm Pam East, and I have got a really fun project for you today. We're going to be using my pendant and earring stamps to make some pretty silver pieces, and then we're going to embellish them with acrylic ink and resin. And I'm going to show you two different ways of approaching this. I'm going to be demonstrating two different methods of using inks and resins. In one method, I will be tinting the resin using acrylic inks. And that's how I made this piece here and how I'll be doing these. The other method, I paint the acrylic ink on first, and then I put the resin over the top, and it gives a different effect, as you can see. This piece is done. These are set up to show you the next steps, and then I can do this one as well. So these are the two methods that I'm going to be showing. Start by preparing the stamp with Cool Slip. Now again, this one has a very deep frame, and sometimes the Cool Slip doesn't want to go down in there. So I've sprayed some into this lid, and I'm going to use a toothbrush to make sure it's down in that frame. I don't want it pooling in there, but I do want to make sure that it's got those edges. And then I'm going to give it a light mist to go over the high parts of the design. All right, and we're going to let that dry. I'm going to take the overspray from my hand and I'm going to put that on the plastic and on the roller. I didn't add any extra. It was just a little tiny bit of overspray that was on my hand. I'll be rolling this out with a red slat, and then I'll be rolling on the stamp with a yellow and a clear. So hopefully this is ready. I'm going to dry it a little bit. Get this out of my way. All right, let's do that pre-roll. All right, so I'm going to give it a partial roll. And then I'm going to turn it 90 degrees and roll it the rest of the way. And that hopefully is big enough to do both earrings at once. Oh yeah. And here's my yellow and my clear slats. Start in the middle. Don't go from one end to the other because you'll get a doubled edge. And only do one pass. So I'm going to go up and back, and I'm done. So I was pushing hard enough to get all the way down to the level of the slat. Any more back and forth, and it starts doubling up the frame. Here we go. That looks great. And now we're going to cut that out. And I'm going to use the extra fine needle. This is the fine perforation needle. It's finer than the Ultra Clay Pick. And when I have very small, precise things to do, that I prefer a smaller needle. Here's our template. I'm going to drop that over it, and that'll help us cut it out. If it doesn't line up perfectly, sometimes the clay stretches. Position one of them, cut that one out, and then position the other one. Because sometimes the clay moves a little bit and it doesn't line up. Oop. Okay, so I've got this one lined up. And now I'm going to get this one lined up. And then I want to also get the little insides cut out. This is the loop we're going to hang it from. All right, so next for this will be a little greenware finishing. Just use your normal greenware finishing techniques and firing, and then we'll be ready to apply some resin. We're going to start with the tinted resin technique. One of the #1 questions I get asked about enameling is, how can I get a good purple enamel? And purple enamel is really hard to do, but it's super easy if you're doing resin. And so I'm going to show you something that looks like purple enamel, but is actually resin. You may notice that I've already polished the frames on these pieces. It is much easier to do this polishing before you put the resin in. Otherwise, you might scratch the resin as you're trying to polish. One more step before we start the resin, and that is we are going to burnish the high points of the design, just the high points. And what that's going to do is, if they're shiny, they're going to show through the resin better, and it'll make the design stand out more. I'm not trying to get down into the design, I'm just trying to get the high points. As you can see, this is kind of monochromatic, and you can't really see the design very well, but when I start burnishing it, it starts to show up better. And the same is true when it's under the resin. Before you can apply inks or resins or anything, you want to clean the surface so that wet materials are not going to bead up or pull away from the edges. And the best way to do this is with Prenamel. It's a really good metal prep. I use this mostly for enameling, but it's also great for inks and resins. This is hot water, and I'm just going to put a little of the material on there, and then I'm going to use a brush to clean out the design. Now, this is resin, so I don't need to worry about the back. I'm not going to be putting resin on the back of this thing. I only want to get the front cleaned up so that everything will lay down nicely and not beat up. All right, so I've got to do a pendant and a pair of earrings. And this really does make a difference. I've tried it both ways, and it really comes out so much nicer when you clean it first. Make sure there are no oils on there. This is a hard UV resin. It's super fast curing. It's really fun to use. It's very easy. And I'm going to put some of that right here in this little tray. And I'm going to put a fair amount in because I've got 3 pieces of jewelry to do. And then these are the acrylic dipping inks. I really love the acrylic ink versus alcohol ink because acrylic inks are color fast and very durable. They hold up much better than the alcohol inks. These do have a little mixing ball in them. So you do want to mix them before you use them because they will separate. So use that little mixing ball before dishing out your ink. And this is garnet purple, and this is nightshade. The garnet was a little red for me, and the nightshade was a little too blue. So I got the color I wanted by mixing the two together. And you'll see how that's going to turn out. All right, so I'm actually going to just use a toothpick to pick up the color because you don't want to use too much of it. It's a little bit goes a long way on this stuff. And you can always add more, but you can't take it out. So build your color up slowly. I'm going to pick up some of the darker purple. That's enough of that dark purple, I can tell. But I want to put in a little more of that garnet. It's going to give me a nice shade. There we go. Now I'm seeing the color purple I wanted. As you can see, it did not take very much to get this tinted, but it's going to be quite thin. So I'm kind of looking at the edges, seeing if I've got the color I want or if I want to make it a little deeper. I think I do want to make it a little deeper. Maybe just the tiniest, tiniest dot of that. Okay, so that is mixed and ready to be applied. We're going to take the pieces and we're going to put them on. This is a mug warmer, and this is just a ceramic tile, and I'm going to set this on there so that they start warming up, because the resin is going to spread more fluidly if the piece is warm. And now I'm going to just start putting the resin on the piece. I'm just using the toothpick to do that. And you can see it's kind of flowing, and that's because the piece is hot. So I'm evaluating the color a little bit. It still looks a little pale to me. I think it's a little too pale. I'm going to make that color a little darker. All right, so now that I've got this color where I want it, I'm going to start laying it on. Oh, much better. Much better. You want to go all the way out to the edge of the frame, but not on the frame. And it's going to flow pretty easily because of the heat. The heat also releases bubbles from the resin. I'll show you, I got a little on the frame. I'll show you how to deal with that in just a second. All right, that looks pretty good. Go ahead and do the earrings. And I'm going to get myself a clean toothpick to draw the material up into that point. If I try and lay it on the point, I'll end up with it all over the frame. So instead, I'm just using a toothpick to draw it up to the point. And it'll level itself out because of the heat. All right, so I see a little bubble. I'll show you how to deal with the little bubble. But yeah, let me do that first and then I'll clean the edge. So you need a lighter to get rid of the bubbles. Basically, I'm just going to explode the bubble. And I can just run that right over there and boom, bubble is gone. It doesn't take any time at all. But this little bit of heat on the top makes the bubbles pop right out. I have some of these micro applicators, these little tiny, it's almost like a mini tiny Q-tip. And I can use this to clean the resin off the edge. I might have a situation where the frame is going down at an angle and it keeps wanting to flow back up on there. That does happen sometimes. It's usually not very noticeable when the piece is done. There we go, I got it. I got it. And this one I also got a drop on the edge. Okay, so these are ready to be cured. All right, these are ready to cure. So I'm just going to slide this in there. Make sure it's well back in there. And I'm going to set it for 60 seconds, and we're going to run that twice. Now I'm putting a towel over this because you should not look into a UV light. And so whenever I'm running my UV lamps, I always cover them. I will move this back so we can see the timer. And as soon as that gets down to 0, I'm going to run another 60 seconds because it's a 2 minutes. It's a 2-minute cure. Okay, let's see what we got. There it is. It looks exactly the same, right? Only now, when I pick it up, it's not going to go anywhere. It's done. It's hard. And I can touch it and everything, and nothing more to be done but to put on the earring wires and a jump ring so you can wear them. For this piece, instead of tinting the resin, I painted the piece with the dips directly, the acrylic inks directly. I used azure blue and indigo blue, and I shaded a little bit. I also prepped these with the prenamel so that the inks wouldn't bead up and would lay flat. Now that it's dry, I want to sand off the high points so the color is just down in the deeper parts of the design. So I have some 320 grit sandpaper here, and I'm going to fold it up so that I can get in here with it. And I'm just going to sand off the high points. It comes off pretty easily. I have a bowl of water and a soft toothbrush, and I'm just going to brush out the dust. That won't hurt the ink. Once the ink is dry, it's permanent. So I could leave it like this. I could put Protect-A-Clear on it, or I could put resin over it, which will give it more of a lens effect. After you've sanded off the high points, go in with the burnisher and polish up those high points, just like we did on the other piece. It will make it look better underneath the resin. All right, and then if you scratched the frames at all, go ahead and buff that out now rather than waiting until after you do the resin. And I'm just using a flash shiner here, and that's going to buff out any light scratches I got from sanding out the paint. So yeah, that polishes these right back up. You don't want to have to be polishing these edges after the resin is in. So we're ready to do the resin. I'm going to put it on a tough card. And I've got a toothpick ready. This time I'm just going to drop it directly onto the piece. I don't need to use the palette. I can put that on there. You can see it's like a lens. It magnifies what's going on inside the piece. Oh, this will work better if I put it on heat. There we go. It's starting to loosen up. The heat is even more important in winter. This stuff gets very thick. I think I need another drop. I can get it up into this corner. Yeah, that looks amazing. It looks so much better. All right, and then I want to check it for bubbles. This is very quick and a good precaution to make sure that there are no bubbles trapped in the resin. It doesn't take long to get them out. That looks amazing. So let's go ahead and cure it, and we'll come back when it's done.